wells, is that fracking?
No,
That's not-
deep injection wells are when they're putting the, let's go, does anyone have the definition?
I believe that's the waste, isn't it?
It's the waste ones. Yeah, it's not.
It's usually the brine, which is injected into the ground under high pressures.
Right.
Yeah.
So, right now, it's conditional use of board.
Let
It's
them go
conditional
someplace
use
else
in
and do
four.
it.
So it's already covered.
So
It's
the only
allowed
place you're gonna be able to
in
put that is commercial or industrial.
It can only go in zone 4.
And most of the leases in this area forbid it anyway.
You don't, you really.
You don't want it.
Yeah.
We do not want that at all.
That's why that's why zone 2, that's probably the reason why they created zone 2. Because if it's gonna go, let it go by the compressor station, you don't want it, but,
Yeah, but it was conditioned in zone 2 anyway, so conditional.
because you have to permit, you have to allow,
Right, but
yeah.
the 4
So if you're okay with just keeping it in 4, then you don't have an issue with eliminating zone 2 still.
Yep.
Okay.
Sounds good.
And then we'll just flip over real quick onto page 6 and look at zone 2 again. We're running, I see impoundments. Do we want to just keep that in zone 4? And again, these are standalone. If there's an impoundment that is a use with a oil and gas well site, as part of that well site, they're permitted, you know, that is allowed to go in there. These are just the standalone impoundments that are gonna be filled up, that are serviced, you know, not from a specific well site that they're drilling right there. These would be standalone ones. So if you're okay with that, we can,
I think it's covered.
same thing, okay, the one thing is the public utility installation substation, again, that moves over to 4. I mean, it's still covered in 4.
Yeah, because it's just mirroring
Yeah.
it, so.
Yeah, so those are the only ones that are not in zone 1, you know, because we were moving zone 2 over to zone 1, so I was just double checking for uses. So we're okay with the full elimination of zone 2 then?
Michael, as far as impoundments, wouldn't those normally be in one?
They could be.
It depends, like over in Independence, they have certain areas that are solely used. They fill it up with water and fill up the water trucks and then the trucks go off.
So yeah, these are standalone. Obviously, impoundments can come in when there's a well site and they're fracking, they're drilling,
Yeah.
they can have those, or they can have, you know, certified water. Any of those things can go in while they're drilling the site. Once they're done drilling, and it's, you know, it's just the well there, the rig's gone and everything, you can no longer, they have to, you know, then start remediating, move that out. They can't keep that one there and service ones, you know, next door in North Franklin or over in Independence or wherever they might be. Those would have to go in zone 4, a standalone impoundment farm, essentially. And they're right, they do have those in Independence where you continually get the truck traffic,
Yep.
you know. It's like having an oil and gas well site
Nonstop.
full-time when those are in use. So you really don't want those if you don't have to have them, in all honesty. So you'd want to limit the use as much as you can. That'd be my recommendation. Is everyone okay with that? All right, let's go back for page 5 again. Let's just look at zone 1 real quick. Does anyone have any questions or comments on a, you know, permitted versus conditional versus not allowed in zone 1 that they think should be considered? Correct.
Shouldn't all other uses be at least conditional for zone 1?
No.
Hmm.
It's not defined, it's anything that's not
That's
defined.
not, well, all other uses covers anything that's not defined.
Right,
So-
that was a one.
You'd rather not have to react to that? I mean, a conditional use is better than a permitted use, but if they can meet those conditions that are set within there, you can only attach additional conditions within reason for, you know, you have to have general guidelines for that. So
So let's go to
I
seven.
understand your question, but if something new's coming in,
Not listed.
you probably want to limit it to where it can go. And then you can adjust your ordinance down the road. Once that use, you know, is in there, that would be my recommendation to not change that for now.
Because you're gonna apply
You know, because if a use comes in, you don't have to provide for, you have a catch-all that says, yeah, you know, we're not exclusionary zoning, you have to go here, and if it turns out that it is a use that makes sense somewhere else, you can always come back and update your ordinance to allow, you can amend the ordinance to allow that new particular use in an area that you see fit.
Does that make sense? That isn't, eliminates any problems, doesn't it?
we know from the right to knows that your office was investigating due to the new laws with the medical marijuana. Will that be incorporated in, or will they have to figure out where it goes, or how does that work?
No, I mean, if they want, that would be right now.
Or would that be in all of their uses? Okay.
Right now,
That'd be agricultural, it's profit.
No, seriously, I never thought of that until we read the right to knows and they have been discussing it and never even thought about it.
in the sense that they're gonna be coming, it's not gonna look like a cornfield. You know,
Yeah, it's gonna be all inside,
It's gonna be in
yeah.
a greenhouse warehouse type building, it's gonna be more industrial
That's where they grow it.
than it is gonna actually be. But again, that is something to be considered for them. If you wanna, if you're on that, do you want to consider adding medical marijuana?
Not at this time, I think
Okay.
we need to
Yeah.
carry that on later, or it's a separate subject.
Okay, so on page 1, is there any issues with the uses proposed for zone
Wait a
1?
minute, can we go back to the all uses for just a moment? So if I wanted, like, something that's not on here, it's like a baseball stadium, that would go in all over uses,
Correct.
and it would be only in zone 4 then,
Correct.
at this point.
And if you found an area that you wanted to go there, you could petition to amend the zoning and they can act accordingly. Is everyone okay with zone 1 on page 5? Let's go to zone 1 on page 6.
If, going back to what Bob said earlier about that corridor, 70-40 corridor, and the stuff that's in it that's zone 1, the things that are excluded from zone 1, typically, those would go in that 40-70 corridor. I think that's sort of what your point was. Like, you know, I don't know about funeral home, but they're more, would be in the city or the borough or whatever, but like financial institution, I guess that probably would be too.
So, I mean, the thought is that if it's one of the owners that is requested to remain agricultural, if they then have a change of heart down the road and want to sell a portion of that for that use or sell to a developer for that use, they would have to come, you know, they made that decision now they'd have to come back and request to have it rezoned, or they'd have to get a variance, you know, whatever the proposed use, wherever they're at, they would then have to come back and, you know, they are taking that risk, I guess, that it's not being zoned that way now, if that's a, you know, a possible use down the road. I will just bring up that, on page 6, Jody had commented. Her first one was on 24, but it related to zone 2, since we deleted that, we don't need to talk about that. But on number 26, group home, group facility, she's asking that these be split into 2 uses. So I figured we're on that now. And she's stating that a group home should be a permitted use in all zoning districts as a single-family dwelling. We cannot treat them differently than a single-family dwelling, is what she's
Okay.
indicating.
That's correct, according to the law.
Well, it's according to the law.
Yeah, there's not much
Exchange.
discussion about that.
Yeah.
But, okay, what does the other one do in group care facility? She just has that, she doesn't.
She does not have an issue with that one.
Oh, she's saying it should.
That could be a C, a conditional use in zone 4, whereas the group homes, though, would be a permitted use in all 3 zones now.
Yeah. Okay, so do we have to do a motion
I mean, I honestly, right now, I don't think so. I think we're just making these notes, and then at next month's meeting, you know, we'll review all that, and then we can make motions. When we get
on
that.
that? Okay, so.
But if there's not a consensus, you should. So then, would be a P in all 3. And then under number 27, right below it, she indicates home occupation, low impact. Add home occupation, no impact, mirroring the MPC provision for a no impact home-based business, and should be permitted as a use by right in all residential zones, consistent with the MPC. So, my reading of that is,
So E3 be permitted then.
That would be not low,
Well,
impact,
maybe,
would be
yeah.
no impact.
yeah,
I know.
there'd be no impact. Yeah, I think she's saying it, the MPC calls it no impact, so it should just mirror that. Does anyone have, okay with that?
All we're doing is meeting the law.
The next comment she has is on 43, places of assembly worship.
Yeah,
Mhm.
you have to allow it.
Same thing as, this should be treated as a park, see, I know, so she's basically saying this should be treated as a park.
Again, public park was permitted in all.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so it's a use that you can't eliminate.
Why does that ever make conditional use anyway?
She tried.
And then 49, single-family dwelling. First comment is about zone 2, we don't need to worry about. And then the second comment is consider removing them or making them at least conditional in the industrial zone. I'm assuming that means zone 4?
That's what we could just discuss earlier.
So, yeah, if you read her, it says, if permitted there, assuming she's talking about single-family homes, as industrial uses occur, it inevitably creates conflicts with homes, incompatible uses. And again, that's what we talked about, if you're moving into an area and the definitions and the allowed uses are one thing, and something else, comes in there, someone has a legit beat, they can raise a complaint. So I guess what she's saying is, if you make single-family dwelling a conditional use in zone 4, they come in front of you and it's clear to them and there's a record established that yes, you're moving in here subject to the fact that there could be additional industrial uses that are taking place in your area, so that they can't, it does make an extra step for someone that wants to come in and build a house, but at the same time, the rationale, her reasoning behind that is that protects you down the road when people start complaining about the factory or whatever that's.
You build a house in an industrial area, you're stuck with industrial.
Correct.
That's, my only concern with that is, on this map, when you look at how far back this pink goes on this side, as Bob was talking about, so even if you wanted to go, this is many hundreds of feet away from the road. And if you wanted to build a house back there, then you can't.
No, you
We
can,
could.
you can, it's just a
Well,
condition.
conditional, but it has to be a conditional use.
Yeah,
So you'd have to come,
you'd have to come,
Get
yeah,
approved.
you'd have to get approval.
Some of this is coming from the
Well, that's some of them are little house,
Yeah.
like up in this,
Oh,
it's in this
there.
zone, they have to further approval to build in this zone. Why not, I mean, future, new,
Especially when they're all good. This is
okay, whatever.
But I understand your concern that that's an extra step that someone wanting to build a house would have to do. There are extra fees incurred for conditional use in that sense, so maybe you guys don't want to make it a conditional use.
I think it should be.
I agree that it should be. I think
People
we should be
should have
making,
zone.
yeah, they should,
Right.
yeah.
Any other comment?
Remember when some people
Any
moved
other
from the city
comment?
up to
Yeah,
Mount Pleasant?
it looks like
and They
I-
wanted the farmer to put diapers on his cows because they didn't want the.
They didn't
people-
like the smell of it.
It looks like on this map, again, I don't have my cheaters with me, it's awful small. But from what I can see, between Cunningham and Grimes Road, you got that gap along 40, it's Ag 1. Well, Bush's Farm Market is in there.
Yeah, but it's across the street.
It's green.
No, where they have rented out,
Yeah, it's-
where all
it's
that
green.
stuff
That
is,
tiny
it's
little
green.
piece that's
They're
green.
all the,
Yeah.
Right there.
Yeah.
It's green.
yeah, I forget the name of that,
Yeah.
what the heck they
Isn't
been.
that Bush's Berries or something?
Bush's
No,
Farm
they're not.
Market,
Bush's-
but right
But
now
it's not
it's
a
just
farm
full
market
of,
now.
like a drilling,
Right. He's got it
Bush,
leased
yeah,
out.
Yeah.
Bush HDD or something like that.
Yeah.
So, there again, it goes back to what Bob said, and
Pieces here that are already single family.
So they were,
if industry wants to come in, that's where they're gonna wanna go, is places like that. In that corridor.
Well, they should just have to change it, they're not.
Well, then you could say the same about mine that's along 40, not up on the back of the farm, but the stuff that's along 40 and Lake Road.
oh, that's true, so would that piece of bushes be conditional use then, because it's?
Well, no, it's there, so it's grandfathered in.
Well, I know, but I'm just saying, if it had.
Oh, yeah,
It would be a conditional use then.
yeah.
They would have to have.
In which case, it's in an ag, it's in the green, right? So it's in an ag, so if someone's proposing to put a use there that is a conditional use there, the public could come and express their concerns, and they would have to address what the traffic issues would be, what the, different areas, different things that concerns, and the supervisors then at that time could maybe attach additional conditions to try and minimize that business's impact in an area that it's not specifically designed for. Whereas if it was in the pink district, they might not have to go through those, or there might be less stringent regulations for them. Different zoning districts might have different noise levels, different buffers, different setbacks, those things. So that would be the difference between keeping it there or changing it to the pink.
Does anybody know that Bush's request that all be green?
What?
Yeah, I believe they did.
So does anyone have any other comments regarding the uses on these tables? Those were all Jody's.
All done, ready for the next page?
My only comments were to make the oil and gas related items conditional uses. There's a couple that were to make those all conditional uses.
On this chart you're talking about,
Correct. Just to
the pipelines?
No, sorry, not the pipelines, the re-entry drilling would be conditional uses, and they were previously permitted in 2 and 4.
What's real?
So again, they might have drilled 1 or 2 wells initially on the Smith pad, and 5 years later, they're coming back to, refrac. They would then have to come back, let the board know, let the township know, hey, we're going over these roads, these are the times we're doing it, the roadways to change, so basically, they're re-entering, they're not expanding the use, or maybe they're coming back in. That would require more public notice, people could come, and, the roadway might need to be fixed more since then, or something to that effect. So that's the thought process behind making re-entry drilling conditional use.
But are you saying conditional also in zone 3, or just leave that as not allowed?
Well, re-entry drilling wouldn't be allowed because
Okay.
oil and gas, I don't think is
Right,
allowed
it's not.
there to begin with, because that's village, right?
Well, it's
Or essentially,
download.
Yeah.
So what you're wanting
I don't
to-
think it can go there
what
to
to
begin
do
with.
is, we need to make.
So that my recommendation would be to make re-entry drilling a conditional use in the zone 4,
Exactly.
the current remaining zone 4. Obviously, that would be changed, but.
Shouldn't re-entry drilling be consistent with drilling?
That would make it consistent. If you go to 39, it's a conditional use in zone 1 and zone 4. So my proposal is to change zone 4 to conditional for re-entry.
Okay, I'm sorry, I was looking at re-entry.
I think
drilling
initially we did
operations.
it because it was conditional, and when she got it the first time, our question was, why would you stop it the second time?
Well,
the reentry part.
It's also conditional on others.
Because it's giving us a notification that it's gonna happen again.
And again, if they meet the condition, conditional use is still, if they meet those conditions, you have to approve it. You can just approve it subject to additional conditions.
Our just concern was that they would come in and we didn't want, if you can continue to develop the same pad, that cuts down the number of pads in the area and cuts down the confusion and the hassle. And we didn't want it to somebody to come along and say, no, you're not gonna drill on that one again, now you gotta drill a new one. Which is what our concern was, is we didn't want re-entry to stop the continuing of progress. And tear everything up again, so. That was the only argument that we had for it last time.
So I just wanna make sure I understand what your concern is that there's a well site in place.
There's a well site in place.
2-3 years down the road, they wanna come back, re-drill.
Yeah, the question is if
You don't wanna have the ability.
if the township said, well, no, you know what, you're not coming back and re-drilling, then you have a well pad that's considerable time, expense, money, and land that only has 2 laterals. So now you go to the neighbors and drill another one. That was our only concern, to make sure that it couldn't be stopped.
But, okay, so assuming they're not putting a new pad, it would be re-entry, the conditions in place, they would already be able to meet those.
Meet the
So
original ones?
The original
Okay,
conditions there.
yeah, okay.
Basically, what it is designed to do is to provide public notice so that everyone's back in
Okay.
shows. And if there's a need to change the road, or if there was issue with noises previously that people were familiar with, we're back on, hey, they're gonna come back
Sound
here.
barrier.
Yeah,
Essentially, yeah.
Carolyn that was not her strong suit, and that was one of the things that she did not,
Because
so, yes.
as long as
Okay.
they're meet,
As long as they can meet the
those
original
setbacks
ones.
and everything that are
Yeah,
initially in
okay.
there, that well pad's not, you're not moving that well pad, obviously. They're just gonna come back and the fracking's coming back.
We just wanted to
the
make sure it
truck's
couldn't be stopped or,
If they meet those conditions, so, yeah, and
Okay.
re-entry would not be a new oil and gas development, so they would be fine. And we've had that recently, obviously, people were starting to come through in other townships,
Mhm.
and that has not, and again,
Okay.
it's more just a public notice, so that people can come, and if they had issues with the truck traffic, whether it was that site or another, those can be addressed. Your issue with the roadway, those things come in. That's essentially what the idea behind that was. No other comments on that?
Oh,
Yeah.
because now on this.
Correct.
you have to look at the definitions. You have to look at it.
Those are the, so, table 2s are the different setbacks in the,
Yeah. There's oil and gas definition, regular definition.
yeah, these are the setbacks. It looks like the minimum and maximum lot sizes for different areas.
Yeah, I'll show you later.
2 is mirrored in zone 1,
It's the exact same anyway.
yeah. So we're beginning, eliminate zone 2, correct?
Yeah.
I don't know why it's the same.
Okay. So then zone, Article 3 is conditional uses, this is just basically the process and the criteria that apply to all conditional uses. So JD, to your question, if someone wants to have a conditional use application, Article 3 deals with what they have to do to come in and get a conditional use. That's what's laid out in Article 3. So all those things that are listed as, conditional use on those tables, those ones would have to come through this process, and that kind of outlines what they'd have to do. Okay, on my email, if you notice on page 9, where we get to section 302, specific criteria for conditional uses, if you look at it, care facility, then it just has A, B, C, D, E, F, G, mobile home park. It makes it a lot harder down the road when you're referring to things if you don't have a number next to different items. So my suggestion would be, these are all section 302. So care facility would be 302.1, and then you keep all A through, I think there's a mistake there, that B, C.
Yeah.
B, C should be moved down, so it should be A, B, C, D, E under care facility. So if you're referencing things and when you're citing, it'd be, the proposed use would be under subsection 303.1, care facility. It just makes it easier down the road when you're writing opinions, when you're referring to things, doing an application. So that's just more of a formatting thing. And then that would just move forward through for the rest of that section.
But that's, at the bottom of that page is where it refers to the township code. That's our first one that just folds an ordinance into it.
Correct.
Okay, I have a basic question on, does everybody know at the bottom, what we're talking about at the bottom, their mobile home park?
Right.
It says, see chapter 110 subdivision land development article 6, mobile home park development of the township code of ordinances. So basically, what's in this code book, the ordinance that's in here becomes, it comes into this.
That use, yes.
So my first basic question before we even get to that is, because this book has to be purchased, and those ordinances that are referred to here were not made part of the public review, how is that rectified? Like, they were never printed out and put in here. Because like the public, the mobile home park one's like 18
Well,
pages.
for now, it's just in front of the planning commission.
I know, but I'm saying before. So at this point now, that 18 pages, as we change it or whatever, has to become part of this printed hard copy document, correct?
No, it does not have to, if you're amending that, if you're proposing to amend that right now. if
But
that's
what I'm
you're
saying
doing.
is like, if
I see what you're
I'm,
saying, yeah, I mean, so your
if I'm
request would
just
be. is
Donegal
that-
Township citizen, I'm not on the planning commission,
Yep,
and I read this, how do I, I shouldn't have to pay for something that is part of a public
Yeah,
document.
because it's
should I?
50-some pages long.
so my recommendation on that would be the ones that are referenced, to have those scanned and put on there alongside the zoning ordinance. With the
Yeah,
hope that
because
eventually
even-
everything is online, but
Right,
for now, the thought would be,
because even what went to Washington County then didn't have those.
I would assume not.
So they were not, that's again what I was saying before, they were never reviewed at all. And it's those ordinances that are referred to here total 50 pages, which actually in turn is longer than the zoning ordinance.
Yeah, I see, I understand what you're saying.
So at this point, now, do we, as a planning commission, do we want to go through that?
I guess the question is that's no different than any of these proposed uses. So if you've reviewed those, I understand that
No, I
public
have not
comment.
made it through all 50 pages,
Okay.
but I started.
Okay, so the thought would be,
It's a lot of legal, I don't know if you noticed or not,
yeah.
I'm not aware.
So I guess the comment would be those ones or any of these proposed uses, in subsection 302, the specific criteria for conditional uses, we're just talking about ones that are listed as conditional uses. Does anyone have questions or comments about those proposed uses? That's kind of where we're at. So if mobile home park is one of them, yes, we can pull that and look at that one. If the care facility, just going on that one right there, if you had a question about, subsection D, why is it a 5% maximum, we can talk about that.
Yeah, well, like I said, my concern is that these ordinances that are referred to were never reviewed. And they haven't, they were written, like I said, back in '98 or older.
You don't wanna throw something outdated into the new.
Yes.
Right. And on the resolution, for this ordinance, it's a $25 fee according to the fee schedule for the 110.
That's the point I brought up earlier.
What's
Yeah,
that?
They had that discussion at a previous meeting months ago, that
Oh, sorry.
thought was gonna clarify all that first and get it consistent and updated. You're taking antiquated stuff that doesn't apply. If the adult-oriented stuff is from, what'd you say, 84 or something?
98,
Nope.
and it actually refers to porn on a CD-ROM.
I was gonna say, you're going back to crank-style movie camera.
Yeah, it has that in
Like,
it, it has slides.
Needs to be updated and consistent to, you're intertwining it or you're making it part of it. If it's outdated and inconsistent and they're not all on the same page, it doesn't, it's not very productive.
I don't know, I didn't-
It's counterproductive and you're gonna have to go back and correct it or change it later.
Because there's definitions within the subdivision stuff, and
I
are
know.
some of those definitions the same as what's in the zoning, and are they gonna conflict? That's, so,
And if they, well, again, from a legal standpoint, if they conflict, this would be the one that controls.
The zoning ordinance.
The zoning, yeah, so anything that
For a
is
definition.
conflicting with that, not just definitions, if there's regulations, if you were to, just using
Yeah.
mobile home as an example, if you drafted all new mobile home regulations, if you chose to do that, you say, I really like what Claysville has, you know, whatever it might be, we really like that one, we're gonna tweak a little, that's the one I like, then that would go in here to the, so that conflicts. If it, you know, that says they have to be 10 feet apart, just using a random number, and this says they have to be 20 feet apart, 10 feet is what it's gonna, this is the one that would apply.
Right, but at
I-
this point in time, this just refers to this.
Correct.
Yeah.
This needs to be what we want it to be, because it's becoming
Correct.
part of the,
Correct. Yeah, so I'm saying,
Trumping
so yeah,
document.
so not just, yeah, but what I'm saying is not just the ones that are being referred to back in here, any of these proposed uses, these are all proposed uses, not just the ones that are being referred to back
right,
in
but do
there.
you understand my point is that those,
I don't know, maybe they will, please, I have no idea. Okay, yeah,
Katie?
Yeah, because, I mean, what Jerry's saying is, most people get to buy this book. They
Correct,
don't know it.
correct.
You know, we paid $60 for it, you know, it's not, but now you're gonna give it out. I mean,
you have to apply for a reimbursement.
huh?
I said you have to apply for a reimbursement.
Well, not only that, but different residents paid different prices and got different contents.
Yeah,
That's what I was saying, that it's inconsistent and outdated.
how many pages is yours, Jerry?
Well, no, that, but it doesn't, it's not numbered that way, I have no idea, because
Oh.
it goes from, and mine's, not put in right, cause under my tab that says mobile home parks, it's actually a bunch of, I don't even know what these are. Some kind of, approvals, like, you know, and then it goes into the mobile home, but it's backwards or something, I don't know. I
There's,
can't figure out what
there's
it is.
definitions throughout the, like, there's sections of definitions throughout, like, they're not all in one, they're not in the definition part, they're like throughout it. Like, this says, like, page 4 says definitions, page 5 says definitions 7, but then you go clear back here to page 37, there's more definitions
For mobile home.
within the subdivision. Yeah, it's like, yeah, it's kind of all. Mhm.
At least you have page numbers, I don't even have.
I have phone numbers, yeah.
Mine are by